Welcome. You are in the lab room. I'm your host, Luke. Thank you for joining me. Week number 14 of the National Football League, dubbed Survivor Sunday in the National Football League by the NFL Network. And what a fitting title. I thought that there were a lot of games that were going to have playoff implications this week. And it was definitely going to be a war of attrition in week number 14. And I think this was one of those games that was going to have some far-reaching consequences in the impending playoff push down the stretch. And the elements came into play in many games on the East Coast, including this one, Philadelphia Eagles hosting the Detroit Lions. Both teams come into the game at 7-5. Huge game for both teams. Both teams looking to win their divisions. Both teams needing probably most likely to win their divisions in order to get into the postseason. Lions atop their division by themselves at 7-5 in the NFC North. Meanwhile, the Philadelphia Eagles tied atop the NFC East with the Dallas Cowboys at 7-5, and the Cowboys own the tiebreaker currently over the Eagles. So this is a must-win for the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's get to the big board and break this one on down. The elements were in full effect at the Link on Sunday. Heavy downpour of snow all throughout the game from start to finish. They talked about the snow possibly letting up at the half. No such luck. At one point, the sideline reporter for Fox was reporting that the snow was 8 inches deep on certain parts of the field. And when the ball hit the ground, it would just die. That's how you know that it was a thick coating of snow on the field in the parts that the players weren't frequenting. In the middle of the field, where the players were actually playing and they were running and they were getting up and down and they were moving the snow out of the way, it was probably tolerable in those areas. But on the edges where the receivers are, in the end zone, it was pretty thick. Where the players weren't frequenting, it was definitely a lot of snow, compiling in those areas. So it was tough. The conditions were tough. And I thought the conditions in this football game favored the Detroit Lions because the Eagles want to get up and down with their tempo. They want to run their offense. They want to spread you out. They want to be able to have 3 different plays called, and they want to go fast. And so in this snow, you can't go fast. You can't do anything but go downhill. It can't be a lot of cuts. We know the explosive athletes that the Eagles possess. I just felt like this game was better suited for the Lions. So let's break this game down. Lions with a great drive going early in the game when Joyce Bell is stripped of the ball by Cedric Thornton and it is recovered by Connor Barwin. That took points off the scoreboard. Now, again, it was early in the game. I think you might have been able to get away with attempting a field goal at this point before the snow really got bad. It might have been 2 inches of snow when the game first started. So maybe you could get away with kicking a field goal here. I don't know. Nobody attempted a field goal. No one attempted an extra point except the Detroit Lions did at one point. And we'll talk about it when we get there. But they were definitely in scoring range. Don't know if they would have got in the end zone or not. It was, I think, first down when he fumbled the football. So who knows what that drive was going to become. But I do know they were inside the red zone. They had an opportunity to put points on the board. He was stripped of the ball. And I talked about this with the Eagles. With the Lions. They got to stop turning the football over. It's simple. They're an undisciplined team that has penalties. They're an undisciplined team that turns the football over. And they got away with it. I said even in their impressive win on Thanksgiving, they still turned the football over. And the only thing stopping this team from being elite is this team in Detroit. They're their own worst enemy right now. And if they could get out of their own way, this would be a dangerous team. But they can't get out of their own way. They can't stop shooting themselves in the foot. They can't stop turning the football over. So here's another example of them having an opportunity, because I felt like the Eagles were very vulnerable early on in this game because I felt like the Lions adjusted to the elements a lot faster. And again, I thought this was a game that was suited for the Lions more so than the Eagles. I felt like the Lions adjusted to the elements quicker than the Eagles did. I felt like Matthew Stafford was throwing the football more effectively than Nicholas Foles was early in this game. I thought they had a semblance of a run game a lot sooner. The Eagles didn't even pick up a first down, I don't think, throughout the whole first quarter. I don't think they got a first down either until late in the first quarter or the second quarter. So they were struggling with the elements, with the adjustment that they couldn't run their up-tempo offense. They couldn't spread you out. They couldn't run laterally. They had to go downhill, and it was an adjustment for the Eagles. And so the Lions had an opportunity to really jump on the Eagles early in this game, and they didn't take it by that fumble. Then another promising Lions drive ends with the Joyce Bell fumble. So again, and we're talking about two lost fumbles here on possessions where you're going to get points, most likely. Again, don't know how the outcome of these drives would have been, but let's just assume you get something out of these drives. You're wasting opportunities to score. And they had already fumbled 3 other times that they had recovered themselves before these fumbles. So they were fumbling the ball. They fumbled at least 5 times early in the game. 2 of them were lost by Joyce Bell. So Lions taking points off the board. They're struggling again. And this is what I'm talking about with this Lions team. The inability to take care of the football. They're too reckless with the football. Foles finally makes a mistake in the elements as he throws an interception to Chris Houston, which leads to a Joyce Bell 2-yard touchdown after getting 10 yards on 4th and 2. And Joyce Bell catches a 2-yard pass for the 2-point conversion. It's 8-0 Detroit. So Nicholas Foles, we know about him approaching the streak that Peyton Manning set this year, earlier in the season, with 20 straight touchdown passes versus no interceptions to start out a season. Nicholas Foles was at 19 touchdown passes, no interceptions. He finally makes a mistake here. Throws, and again, this Eagles team struggled with the adjustment to the elements early on in this game. Foles was really having a hard time gripping the football, throwing the ball accurately, and they couldn't run the football. They just were struggling. We know the Detroit Lions came into this game, last 3 or 4 games, they were holding opponents to under 50 yards rushing in a lot of efforts. So they were really dominant in terms of stopping the run early in this game with the Lions, which had been their MO coming into this game. But Foles was struggling. This offense for the Eagles was struggling. That's why the Lions needed to be up by more than 8 at this point, because the Lions were struggling and giving them an opportunity to really jump on them in this football game. But they didn't take advantage. So it's 8-0 though. Lions finally get on the board, first points of the game. Then later on, Jeremy Ross with a 58-yard punt return for a touchdown. It's 14-0. Failed 2-point conversion this time by the Lions, but it doesn't matter. It's 14-0. With the way this game is going, the slow pace, the snow hasn't let up, doesn't seem like it's going to let up. The sloppy conditions, the Eagles not being able to get their footing, not being able to be athletic, not being able to go up-tempo, not being able to sustain offense. 14 might be plenty enough points in this game. I think at this point I was thinking the Detroit Lions had this game well in hand and they were going to cruise to a victory. That's how I felt because of how little was happening in this game and how little looked to happen in the future for this game. I just felt like 14 was plenty in this game. But then the Eagles start to ratchet it up. And this is where you could see the Eagles starting to really adjust to the elements. Nicholas Foles started to get a better grasp of what he had to do, how to throw the football, what situations they needed to take advantage of, a lot of one-on-one situations. Hey, throw it up, let Riley Cooper and company make some plays. Let's get the ball out wide to Deshaun Jackson in his hands quickly and to see if he can work. And you can see they started to get it offensively. They started to get into a rhythm and a tempo, and they started to shake off the elements and the rust and realize, okay, we can do this. We can adjust and we can play football in this weather. And they finally get on the board with a touchdown as they rush in. They fail the 2-point conversion, but it's 14-6. Now you can see the Eagles are starting to wake up. Foles goes 4 of 4, including a 28-yard touchdown strike to Deshaun Jackson. There were 2 bogus calls that set up the touchdown and the 2-point conversion. They called a roughing the passer penalty on Nick Fairley. It was a terrible call. This is the second week that the Eagles have gotten away with some egregious calls. Then the holding on Ndamukong Suh on the 2-point conversion. The commentators are still looking for where the flag occurred. They said 90. You look at the play, the hold definitely couldn't have been on him. I don't know what they were looking at. Again, these plays that happened on this drive didn't impact the game in a way like last week, where I felt like that cost the Arizona Cardinals the game. This week, the Eagles took it to the Detroit Lions and took this game from the Lions. They beat them. And I feel like if there was no snow, because of the way this game played out in the second half and mainly in the fourth quarter, I think the Eagles were the better team anyway. I think they would have beaten them soundly had this been a normal day at the link, without the snow. And just looking at the way this game unfolded in the second half, when the Eagles got into a rhythm and they started to really assert themselves offensively and the defense got settled in, they were the better team. And let's get to that. So it's 14-all after the Deshaun Jackson touchdown, and Nicholas Foles got lucky on that play. He overthrew Riley Cooper, and it just so happened that behind him was Deshaun Jackson in the back of the end zone. That wasn't purposely done. He just happened to be Johnny on the spot, right place, right time. It ended up being a touchdown. But the two-point conversion, they got an opportunity. Essentially, they got a mulligan. They got to do it over again because of that bogus call, that phantom holding. And Bryce Brown walks into the end zone. So it's 14-all. Now, it's a tied game. The ensuing kickoff, Jeremy Ross strikes again, this time returning a kickoff, 98 yards for a touchdown. Two-point conversion is failed. It's 20-14 Detroit. So you can kind of see that the Eagles are getting it done offensively. If not for the returns of Jeremy Ross, the Lions still have 8 points. So really they're being held up by their special teams right now. And I could start to see that the Eagles were really getting it offensively now. And so it was only a matter of time before they ratcheted it up offensively and ran away from the Lions, because you got to know the Lions are going to turn it over at least one more time. At least one more time. So they had a penalty on the two-point conversion, did the Lions. And so they elected to try to kick the extra point because of the false start, and ended up getting blocked. And so it's 20-14. Shady McCoy goes absolutely nuts. And this is why he's one of the best backs in the National Football League, because the guy's electric. I mean, there's really not much more to say. And early on, he struggled to adjust to the elements and the snow. He couldn't cut. His game is predicated on being able to be more agile than you, to be able to stop on a dime, to jump cut, to be able to really contort his body and to leave you standing still. And he wasn't able to do that early on, but he adjusted. And I think with them running in the center of the field where a lot of the action took place, that really compacted the snow and made it a lot easier to deal with. And so he started going. And once he got going, he was like the Energizer Bunny. He just kept going and going and going. And he went nuts. He went off. He went crazy. And he scores on a long touchdown run, two-point conversion to Riley Cooper. Eagles take a 22-20 lead. Then, on the very next possession, Shady sets up a touchdown and ends up being a Nicholas Foles quarterback sneak. But he sets it up with another huge run down to about the 11-yard line. Eagles end up getting in the end zone on that sneak that I just mentioned. And they failed the two-point conversion this time around. And it's 28-20 now. And Shady, he was just, hey. He was just dancing on him. I mean, he was having that type of day. Sets an Eagles franchise record for most rushing yards in a single game, over 200 yards rushing. He was dominant in this game, especially in the second half, especially in the fourth quarter when the game was in the balance. He stepped up and really showed that he was the best player on the field in this football game. And this was the nail in the coffin. And this is classic Detroit Lions in 2013. This is classic Detroit Lions under Jim Schwartz. After the sixth fumble of the game, and of course the elements had a lot to do with that, but I don't care. The Eagles were playing in the same game you were playing in, and they didn't fumble the ball 6 times. So I don't want to hear that. Sixth fumble of the game, the third one that was actually lost, and this one was inexcusable. The center, Dominic Raiola, snaps the ball before Matthew Stafford is ready. Okay, that's one thing. But to compound the matter and make it worse, Matthew Stafford tries to scoop the football up and still make a play. Okay, if it's a normal day, hey, knock yourself up, knock yourself out, try to scoop it up, see if you can make a play, salvage that play, and then at least get it out of bounds near a receiver so that you can live to fight another day and not lose 11 yards on the play. But this is in the snow. This is in the elements. Picking up the ball on the run is all but impossible. That's like trying to pick up a greased hog. It's not happening. That's the equivalent of putting oil on the football and then running at full speed and trying to pick it up while running on a wet marble floor. It's not happening. Stop it. So, for Matthew Stafford to think he was going to pick that ball up on the run, asinine. Just fall on it at this point. Fall on the ball, retain possession, you're moving the football, you're trying to go down and get the game-tying score. There's no need to try to be He-Man here. It's 4-down territory. Whether you pick this ball up or you fall on it, it's 4-down territory. Just fall on the football. It was first down, for God's sake. Fall on the football. So he tries to scoop it up. He misses the football. About 4 Eagles defenders are right behind him. Lance Kendricks, or Michael Kendricks, excuse me, pounces on the football, recovers it for the Eagles. Essentially, that was it. That was all she wrote. Eagles take the football down the field, and Chris Polk seals the game away with a 41-yard touchdown run up the middle, and they were getting gashed in the second half, especially in the fourth quarter, was this Lions defense. I don't know if they got tired. I don't know if they weren't getting in their run fits properly. I don't know what was the cause for this outburst on the ground for the Eagles, but the Eagles dominated them up front. They literally dominated. They took the manhood of the Detroit Lions, and they challenged them. They said, we're going to run the ball through the teeth of your defense, right up in the middle where Ndamukong Suh and Nick Fairley are supposed to be. Stop us. Try and stop us. And they couldn't do it. They challenged them, and the Detroit Lions didn't stand up to the challenge. And it was disheartening. I mean, they literally stepped on the manhood of this Detroit Lions team by just pounding the football. They knew what was coming. They couldn't stop it. And that to me says that this Eagles team is better than the Lions. Forget about the elements and everything. They made the proper adjustments, did the Eagles. And they ran the football. I mean, they turned into a different team. And the Eagles showed me something in this game because I didn't think this was in them. I didn't think they had the ability to just go downhill, to say, all right, we're going to line up some I formation, some shotgun, whatever it takes. We're going to line up, and we're going to pound the football down the teeth of your defense, down your throat. I didn't know they had that in them, and I saw it in this game, and they impressed me. And this showed me a different side of this Philadelphia Eagles team, that we can get it done in inclement weather. We can get it done on a fair weather day. Doesn't matter. If we need to pound the football, we can. If we can spread you out and go 110 miles an hour, we will. But if we got to slow it down and go at a snail's pace and pound you into oblivion, I can do that too. And that's what they did in this game. And ultimately, the Detroit Lions' mistakes and the Eagles' ability to run their offense, whether it be running the football or Nicholas Foles heating up and throwing it in the second half, that was the difference. Detroit Lions mistakes, which has been the difference maker all season long for them. When they don't make mistakes, they win football games. When they make too many mistakes and the other team takes advantage, they lose. And this was another one of those games where they turn it over 3 or 4 times and they lose a football game. 34-20, the Eagles win this football game. And this was an all-important game. It really is a shame that the elements came into play in a game of this magnitude because, again, if neither one of these teams win their division and they finish tied and their record is good enough to get in the postseason as a wild card, the Eagles own the tiebreaker because they beat the Detroit Lions. And I already said that I don't think the Lions are going to win this division. I thought that maybe after that win on Thanksgiving, they would wake up. They would have an epiphany that, hey, this division is here for the taking. We just got to go out and seize this opportunity. But I gave it to them 2 weeks ago after they lost to Tampa Bay. I really laid it on them thick. And I thought they got the message, and I thought they had woken up from that malaise that they were going through, and they were going to start playing better football, but I was wrong. They don't want this division. And I said on that rant that I had after the Tampa Bay game that they didn't want this division. They were just holding the seat warm for the Packers, waiting for Aaron Rodgers to come back and take this division from them. And I was in the camp that thought that Aaron Rodgers should just not come back this season because I didn't think the Packers would do enough and be around. I thought the Lions would do enough to run away with this division, but they obviously don't want this division. And if you're the Chicago Bears, if you're the Green Bay Packers, the division is there for the taking. This Lions team, they don't know how to handle this type of success. They don't know what it takes to win a division. They don't know how to get it done. They're scared of the opportunity that is in front of them. They are throwing it away. So if you're Green Bay, if you're Chicago, you got an opportunity to win this division because the Detroit Lions obviously don't want to win this division. And if you're the Philadelphia Eagles, hats off to you. What a performance by the Philadelphia Eagles. You got it done. And this was impressive. I think this was your most impressive win of the season because you had to go outside the box for this one. This wasn't Chip Kelly's offense, go, go, go. And this wasn't the Eagles coming up to the line of scrimmage with 3 different plays and wide receiver screen, bubble screen outside, fake handoff, this and that. There wasn't a lot of gimmicks here. It wasn't a lot of gadgets. This was, I'm lining up with my 5 guys in front of your 5 guys. I'm going to put a fullback in the backfield. I'm going to put a tight end out there, and I'm going to block your guys man to man, mano a mano, and I'm going to win up front. And I'm going to run the football down your throat. And when you come up, I get one-on-one coverage. I'm going to take advantage of it with my receiver. And they won. They just flat out won in the trenches in this game. Dominated the Detroit Lions. And that showed me a lot. Because, again, I didn't think the Eagles possessed that type of ability. But I saw it in this game, and that was impressive. Eagles go to 8-5 after this win. And this was a huge win again. Now they own the tiebreaker not only over this Lions team, but they own the tiebreaker over the Arizona Cardinals as well in back-to-back weeks. Huge wins for the Eagles. And now they're atop the NFC East, if even only for a day. Because if the Cowboys win, they'll assume that top spot again in the NFC East. But right now, the Eagles are your NFC East leaders at 8-5. And tell you what, that divisional race is going to come down to the wire because the Eagles aren't going to just allow this division to be won without them having to say something about it. So this is an impressive win by the Eagles. They're 8-5. This is a debilitating loss for the Lions. I don't think they want this division. I don't think they're going to win this division because they gave you every opportunity to win this game. You were up 14-0, and you had fumbled twice while you were in scoring position. You could have easily been up 20, 26, 28-0 in this game, and you blew opportunities to put them away. And then even when you blew those opportunities, you still had the lead at 20-14. And then you just let Shady McCoy and this Philadelphia Eagles offense run wild on you. And so you're now 7-6. You're right there, back to the pack in that division. Bears with a win on Monday Night Football will tie you back in this division. The Packers won, so now they're a half game behind you in this division with Rodgers coming back and them still having you at home, them having you in the season finale in your place. They got a legitimate shot at still winning this division. They got the Chicago Bears. But you didn't sweep them like you swept the Bears. You split. So by virtue of that tie, the Packers went out and you lose one more game, they win the division. And the way you're playing, you're probably going to lose another game. You could lose to Baltimore in Week 15. I mean, the Lions are so frustrating. I'm done. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the Lab Room. Thank you for joining me here on this program. This is just the start of Week 14 and me breaking down all the games. Come back. I've got plenty more games to break down in Week 14 of the National Football League.